Hello and welcome to That Eurovision Podcast, Eurovision with a Slice of Life. My name is Jazzi and I am doing very well today. This is my first time hosting the podcast, so I'm very, very nervous. And joining me today is...
Hi, it's Rosie, and I am once again accompanied by my beautiful little cat, Caradwen, and I am therefore doing very, very well. I have spent my entire day and honestly my entire week playing with a kitten, cuddling a kitten, and telling a kitten how much I love her. So
it sounds like a really good week.
Like, my life is idyllic right now. I'm so happy.
Tim here, once again, very, very uneventful, but it's my first time here for a bit, but I did watch Waitress last week, so shout out to Lucy, because I finally got to see her play Jenna Hunterson after so long, and that's been very frustrating that I didn't get the chance until now. She was very lovely, so UK peeps, they're on a nationwide tour, so if you get a chance, go see her. But yeah, very, very uneventful. And finally, joining us is another new member of the team. So I'm going to pass it over to them and let them introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Colin. This is my first time. I'm really excited, get to meet everyone for the first time. And I'm just really excited to talk about Eurovision.
Today, we are going to go back to our country retrospectives, and we will be talking about a country that hosted and won the very first Eurovision. And they also sent the famous Celine Dion to Eurovision. And so we are, of course, talking about Switzerland. Now, over the years, they have had varying successes in the contest. They've won contests. But in recent years, they've had a few, especially in the noughties and 2010s, they've had some strings of non-qualifications, like having 4 or 5 non-qualifications in a row. However, recently they've started to come more back into focus. Luca Hani placed 4th with She Got Me, and then John's Tears placed 3rd in the most recent contest. So things have definitely changed for them very recently. And I guess a starting point for that would be for me to just ask what your most your favorite entries from Switzerland are.
Oh, I can start this off. You've already mentioned it, but I was a fan of Celine Dion before anyways. Of course, who wouldn't know My Heart Will Go On? And she's gone to be a worldwide superstar, touring all around the world all the time, having residency shows in Vegas, and, just a few #1 albums. So main talking point is Celine Dion, just because she's one of the people that have managed to be successful worldwide, which is very, very fascinating. Looking at the robbed ones, maybe the ones that didn't qualify, I'd say Time Bell, just because they were very close, but I love the song and I love the revamped version that they sent to Kiev, and that staging was magical, and it felt like a Disney song in the end. And one final one, shout out and pay respects, R.I.P. Liz Asia, just because she was the first winner. She will be, as Helena Papari says, my #1. So, the contest wouldn't proceed on and on and on if we didn't have a first winner. And, someone's going to be the first one. So, yes. And she has been instrumental to the success of the contest. So that's why she's a very important person.
I also wanted to give a shout out to Lucia. Refrain is beautiful, but I actually wanted to give a shout out to her 3rd entry. She did 56, 57 and 58, and it's her entry in 1958, Giorgio. It's such a beautiful, magical, very lively, very passionate, very theatrical sort of song. And I just think she absolutely sells it. It's such a beautiful piece of music, and it's one I listen to pretty regularly as well, which for a song from that early on in Eurovision is incredibly impressive. Going a little bit later, we've already mentioned Celine Dion. And I wanted to also mention a couple of underrated ones. And for me, probably the most underrated one actually did qualify for the final and then came last. So that's Anna Rossinelli with In Love for a While. It's so pretty, it's charming. She's got such a beautiful voice, and I genuinely cannot believe that this came last in 2011. Also, got to give some love to the amazing John's Tears, Répondez-moi and Tout l'univers, both absolutely stunning pieces of music, well-deserved third place in 2021. And also, if you've not listened to our interview with him, he's an absolute sweetheart, so please go and do that. But I'm hesitant to say that this is my favorite Eurovision song of all time, because it does change, and yeah, it might feel differently on a different day, but it's definitely in my top 5 of all time. So I'm going to give a huge shout out to the amazing Sabalta from 2014 with Hunter of Stars. It's such a fun but meaningful song. The lyrics are absolutely fantastic, and I think it's really clever. I love the violin. Obviously, it's me. I love a good violin in most things. I just think it's such a wonderful, upbeat song about something that can actually be quite dark and quite serious to talk about, this idea of masculine bravado, basically. And I love the way he does it. I just think it's great. And I really would have liked to have seen this come higher in 2014.
Like, literally,
Yeah.
shout out to the whistling tones, because like I can't do that. Like, I'm so jealous. And the fact that he did that without effing up was props to him. Props to him.
I was actually also gonna say one of my favorites was Sabalta Hunter of Stars, because I mean, I'm relatively new to the contest. 2018 was my first one, but this one I always go back to it because I just love it that much. It just makes you so happy, and I just love that song, and I wish it did better. It still didn't do bad, but I wanted him to do really well. But I also want to give a shout out to 2018 Zibs with Stones. I thought that one should have qualified. I really liked like the little rock aspect and the little flair they had on stage. And I really wanted to see that one qualify and be in the final. It didn't, but I just loved it. I still listen to that one. It was also from my first year, so it holds a little special place in me.
I have a few from the noughties that I really, really like, and two that especially that I find very underrated, which is DJ Bobo's Vampires Are Alive. It just reminds me, like, it came out when I was 11, so there's some reasoning behind this, okay? It reminds me of being like in a kids club when I was about that age, and it's just a song that you would sing along to, like, in a kids club, and I really, really enjoy it. And it just gives me a bit of nostalgia vibes. Another song that I think was absolutely robbed in 2008 was Paolo Benguzzi's Era Stupendo. I think this song's stunning. I think it being sung in Italian is probably the thing that probably sells it for me. I don't think it would work in any other language. And I'm just so sad that this did so poorly, because I think prior to 2008, correct me if I'm wrong, it was one of the favorites going into the contest, and it just completely bombed, and it's so undeserved. I think this song and San Marino song 2008 helped slightly bring Italy back into the contest, because we started to see Italian back in the contest again from Italian speaking countries. And I think without some of these entries, Italy may never have returned. So you got to be thankful for that. And I'd also say very recently, because I think it's a song that was loved at the time, but I think people have kind of forgotten about it now. And it's also my second place in 2019. So if I'm rating you second, Hatari, I really like your song. It's a Luca Hani, She Got Me. It's just totally my thing. I love it. I so deserving of the 4th place it got. So happy. And on the night, I said, this deserves to win this performance. Everything about this screams winner to me, but I think I was slightly biased about it. But I still love it, and I love him as well. Anyway, next question I was going to put out to you was, things have improved for Switzerland in recent years. 2019, 2021, they have got 2 top 5 results. What have Switzerland done right that they were previously doing wrong? Because prior to 2019, they'd had a string of like 4 non-qualifications in a row. So what changed?
Looking at the way they selected their entry, because let's delve into this carefully. 2011 to 2018, Switzerland had their national final. Die Gruß, oh, I'm gonna butcher this. Die Gruß et Xing Show. So sorry if I butchered that terribly. I'm not good at German. But yeah, they've had that national final going on for some time. And between 2011 and 2018, only 2 qualifiers came out of that, Anna Rosselini and Sibolta. And the rest, they were non-qualifiers. 2 of them even came last. So you can see where the issue is. I think they've just seen the string of consecutive NQs from 2015 and 2018 and just said, look, we need to change the strategy. So I think they've just said, you know what, let's try something different, which is the internal selection for the past 3 years. And, you know, Luca Hani qualified and it worked. And Jean Stiers qualified and gave them third. So it shows that there's no single method of selecting your Eurovision entry. So I think Switzerland was at a point of just like, let's just try something different and hopefully it works. When they did that, the result came in. So, you know, I'm guessing they're going to stick to this method for some time because it seems to be working for them and it's picking up a momentum, and a good momentum, because they came 4th in 2019, they came 3rd in 2021. So I'm thinking we're very close to another Swiss win.
Probably the thing that I can think of is almost hard to say, because I don't feel like some of the acts that didn't qualify didn't have this. But I feel like the biggest change that's happened for the last couple of years as well in the acts themselves that they've chosen, which is kind of interesting given that they haven't been chosen by a national final, is they have so much charisma and so much stage presence. And I do feel like that was lacking from some of the performers, but I also don't think it was lacking from all of them. I think there were some that just got caught out in a rough year. I think there were some that weren't very friendly to either side of the voting. And I think that, coupled with the change in the selection process, has probably really helped them. But I think probably the biggest thing that sells you on both Luca Hani and John Stiers is their stage presence, is how they perform. They are so professional, but also likable, they're personal, they are so great at portraying the message of the song that they're talking about. And I think it's really helped. Acts like Zibs particularly, I thought they had so much charisma and so much going for them, but it just wasn't to be. 2018 was really tough. And yeah, I would say that some of the other acts didn't necessarily have that same sort of atmosphere to them. I think, again, it's hard to say because I didn't see what the national final show was like, but I could almost wonder if it was to do with scaling up the act from probably a quite small national final stage to the huge Eurovision stage, and people possibly just getting lost. So that being taken more into consideration in selections has probably really helped them to change the results, because most of their songs that they've sent haven't been bad. They just get lost. And I think they've realized that they really need to stand out, but also without losing the integrity of the artist in the process.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, like, I was just looking at it, and it was before they started the national selection. They like had a couple. They didn't qualify for a couple of years before that too. So it makes sense why they switched. It just didn't work out for them, you know. Some countries national selections will always work for them, but some internal selections are better. And I just think Switzerland has shown in these past couple of years they're just better with the internal selections. They produce better acts because, I mean, they didn't do very well for a while. So I just think that the way they selected the artists really did play a big role. Because, I mean, with national selections, it could be completely random or something just that maybe people in Switzerland liked, but not the whole continent. It could just be very niche to them. So I think having that internal selection helps give that broader like audience view to everyone.
I think the big thing for me is that they've been like, I think before, like the Swiss team had to focus on quite a few entries, like to stage them. I'm not saying that staging was the major problem before, because I think Zib's song was staged really well. However, I think there was a couple before that just did not translate very well on stage, and they actually translated a bit better in the national final. I think they have like one act, one song to focus on, and they have all that time to get the staging right, get the performance right. And I think they have matched the songs that the singers have sung to the singer really, really well. They've been able to sell the song, they believe in the song, and it's the song that singer would, like John's Tears would typically sing a song like he sang at Eurovision. Lukhani would typically sing this type of song he sang at Eurovision. I think they've matched the songs to the artists really, really well, and I think so therefore they're able to sell their song to the public, sell their song to the jury, and it be a bit believable, be a bit more believable than maybe the songs from the national finals. Some of the songs from the national finals that were selected from the national finals did give me song writing camp vibes, and they're not my favorite type of Eurovision song. I think especially in 2016, 2015, then things got a bit better with Apollo, because Apollo qualified for the televote, Zibs qualified with the jury, so they were getting some of the balance right. After their last places, things were starting to improve, but they needed to take that next step, and an internal selection kind of did that, because now they have 2 top 5s in a row, so things are going very well for them right now. I guess moving on, which is a kind of another question on selection methods. What are your thoughts on the selection methods they have now, because they have currently gone internal, and would you like to see them revert back to a national final? And if so, what would you like to see that national final contain, if that is something you would like to see?
Okay. I'm just looking at their participation and comparing it, like, okay, how did they do when they were internally selecting, and how were they doing when they were doing a national final? And all I've got to say on that is, it seems, I mean, this is not applicable to every single country, but most of the time, just looking at it, it seems that they do better when they're being internally selected per se. Well, up until when the semifinals came in, and that's when some decisions didn't go to very well towards the end. So I'm guessing that's when they went back to a national final. But so far, I think they're going to keep this method, because the internal selection, it involves multiple steps. So it involves like the public, and it involves like professional juries. Like, someone correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was like 100 like professional people that are like helping select the entry. So it's not like it's everyone at SRF just like picking the songs. It's more of they're having a lot of people look into it. So it's not like, okay, it's not sticking to Switzerland. They're getting help from, I'm looking at the list from like 2019 when they did this. They had past Eurovision participants. So they had like, who do they have? They have Ovi. They had Ruth Lorenzo. So it just shows that they're taking it seriously. I'm thinking if the method works, then go ahead. But rounding this up, if they do come back to a national selection, I really hope that, they use what sort of elements, they keep some of the elements they're using right now for the internal selection to select the entrants. And then, when they see a performance, these jurors get a chance to vote on it as well. So their weighing is still there, even though they've already heard the song, studio version wise. When they see a live version of it, they can then, have a rethink and just say, look, okay, I think this sounded great in the studio, but when you were performing it, maybe I wasn't feeling it as much, so I might not vote for it. So, there's an option to change their mind. But, try and keep some of the aspects they're using now, hopefully use it in the national final if they do revert to that.
I'm very much of the don't fix what ain't broke sort of opinion, in that while this internal selection process that they've got going seems to be working, I wouldn't say there's any need to revert back to a national final. One of the things I did find quite interesting when I was doing a bit more looking into their older process is that they really capitalized on what makes Switzerland such an interesting country culturally, in that they tended to have sort of different representatives from each of the sort of cultures that exist within Switzerland. So they had representatives that were French, that were German, that were Italian, and in Romansh as well. And I think that would be really cool if they kept that for a national selection, if they were to ever bring that back, because it's awesome that Switzerland has such an array of languages and sort of different aspects of each of these cultures as part of its national identity. And I would really love something that celebrates that.
Yeah, so I'm kind of in the same boat where I'm like, it's going good for you. You should probably stick with it. It's working. Why? You might just mess it all up and go back to not qualifying. The national selections, it would be more fun for me, but I'm not sure that would be what's best for them. It might be fun to watch them and get to listen to all this new music, but they can just be like, y'all, this does not work. We aren't placing well. Internal selections are just get us better results in the last couple of years. So we're just going to stick with that. I'm all for sticking with what works. I'd rather have a really good Eurovision than an okay national selection.
I feel like I really wanted to echo what Rosie said. Like, you don't fix what isn't broke, but if they were to go back to a national final, then drawing like from different parts of their culture, drawing from the French, drawing from the German, drawing from the Italian, Swiss, drawing from the Romansh side of things as well. I think that would like really, really work. Something as well as like keeping the professionals, like Tim said. And I think a way to do this would be to do something like France did this year and have like 10 or so jurors who have Eurovision experience, some of them within Switzerland, some of them potentially not. Like Duncan Lawrence was part of the French selection this year because he's recent winner. And it really worked for France this year. So that is something that I would maybe, if they were to go back to an internal selection, maybe be something I would be for, because I think keeping that professionalism within the national select within Switzerland really has worked out for them. So a way to do that would be, just keeping that like frame within Switzerland of having professionals deciding their entry, but giving a bit of the say back to the public. I think the next thing that I want to throw out to you all is, what can Switzerland do to get them over that line? Because in the last like 2 attempts, they've got really, really close, but they've not got that win. Especially in 2021 with John's Tears, he won the jury, but he didn't really. He did okay on the televote, but obviously it wasn't enough to win the contest. What can Switzerland do to get them over that line? Get us back in Switzerland and spending a lot of money to get to a contest. Because Switzerland ain't cheap.
You know what? This is gonna go down in 2 ways. So, like we've mentioned, why fix what's not broken? They're gonna stick with this method for a few years. We don't know when that's gonna end. So I think it's gonna be a trial and error. Looking at it now, Switzerland actually won their first semi-final since it was introduced, with to l'univers. So they're heading in the right direction, and they've got a podium placing. So they're there. So it's whether or not it's going to be this year or it's going to be in 2023. Who knows? But for me, they're getting close. They're ticking the right boxes at the minute. And all I've got to say is they're doing the right things. It's whether or not all the right things combined would end up being a winning song. Because sure, they're appealing to the juries now, which counts as half. But, with Eurovision, you need to appeal to both. But with Eurovision, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to appeal that high to the audience for you to win, as mentioned in 2016, where the jury vote was a bit high and the televote was a bit high, but didn't win overall. So you just need something that would appeal to both, and it will work out just fine. They might get over that line.
Yeah, I echo exactly what Tim said. Like, just keep doing what you're doing. You are getting so close. And honestly, I feel like certainly this year, possibly not 2019, but certainly this year, I feel like it was a very plausible winning song. There were just 2 entries better than it this year. And sometimes it does just depend on what the mix is like in the year you enter. I don't doubt that there are years where I think To l'Univers could have entered and probably won. Again, I was basically planning on saying the same thing as Tim. It is just a case of finding that sweet spot between the juries and the televoters. You don't have to win both of them. You don't even have to win either of them, but getting a sort of second or third place with both of them will really push you to those top spots. And I certainly think it's possible the way they're going. I think it is just finding where that spot lies. And sometimes it's not necessarily predictable. Sometimes it's just what happens on the night. And it's not necessarily something that anyone would possibly think of happening. I mean, this year, Måneskin weren't even really in the running until we got to rehearsal week and we started to see what the live performance was going to look like. So sometimes it comes down to factors that aren't necessarily predictable. And that's a good thing in terms of the contest and from a viewership perspective. I would just say, don't try and play to it. Send something that is in the direction you're going in, send something that is true to the artist, and you can't go too far wrong, I think. If Switzerland continue in the direction they're going in, I'm going to be very happy anyway.
Yes, I think we're all kind of in a little bit of agreement. They need to appeal to both jury televotes. You can't do good in one and just lose the other and win. You have to do good in both. You need to appeal to everyone. 2020, Au Point de Moi, I really like that song. I think that one honestly could have even done better than 2021. I love that one. And I think they are due for a win. I feel like they want it. Like, they're really trying to get that win. And because they've been coming really close. 2019, they did good. They sent another good song. Contest was canceled, obviously, but then they still sent another really good song. So I think they're trying to win, and I think it will come soon for them. I think they shouldn't lose hope, and they should keep trying, pushing forward.
I agree with everything everyone's been saying. I think it's just keep doing what you're doing, and eventually something will work out and you will get that win. And yeah. So who in the future would you like to see represent Switzerland?
Oh, okay. All right, then I can start this off. I'm looking at the past participants, and there's some that, you know what? I'm not happy with their results, especially the recent ones. And I know I'm going to get a lot of shtick for this, just because why are you going with someone who's already gone on that stage? Well, I don't know. Maybe I want them to do a Poli Genova and come back and get their revenge, or maybe get like their Valentina and, actually qualify. But, the one that I'm looking at the most is either Melanie Renee, who now goes by Maylise, who represented them in 2015 with Time to Shine, or Time Bell with Apollo. But I did hear that their singer, Maruna, like, you know, even if she goes off on her own, not saying that Time Bell would split up, you know, there's some people out there that actually wants her to go on her own, but either from her or them as Time Bell, please come back. Like, I think you were close. I think you can do it. But that's just me.
So I've actually spent my afternoon having a listen to some Swiss music, having a search through the depths of the internet. And I've actually uncovered a couple of really cool sounding artists that I wanted to put forward. So the first one I wanted to put forward is Black Sea Dahu, who are sort of electro folk, but not in the same way that someone like Goe is. They're much more chilled out, but it's the sort of music that I really enjoy listening to. And I think it would bring something completely different to the Eurovision stage. And the other one is Charlie Rowe and the Washing Machines, which is a fantastic band name. But she's got almost a very sort of British indie sort of sound. It's very sort of chilled out. She's got a very interesting voice. And I think that it could do really well. We've seen how particularly the UK can really take to music that sort of reflects our own music scene from other countries. I think Georgia 2016 is probably the best example of that, where a lot of UK viewers really loved it and it didn't really hit with other countries, but it sounded like something that would have come out of our music scene. So I feel like Charlie Rowe would be a really great option as well.
Yeah, so I'm gonna admit I'm not the biggest follower of the Swiss music scene, but I'm just gonna look back at like what Tim did, look back at some past participants, see who I want to come back. Zibs, I know they were pretty recent, but I really want them to do well. I love that song and I just want them to come back and like, I want them to win. I just love their song. I love the whole vibe and the whole feel. And I want them to win so badly, but I don't know if that would ever happen, if they'd ever even come back. But if they do, I'll be the #1 fan. I don't really know many others. I mean, if Celine Dion came back, I think we'd all be happy about that. We'd all love to see it.
I kind of just want to echo what Colin said. I would love Zibs to come back. I would love them to get their revenge because I think they were in a really, really tough year. And I think they just got unlucky with the semi-final that they were in. And I think if they'd have been in the second semi-final or Stones had been in a different year, they would have made it. They had the stage presence and the charisma to do very, very well in the contest. So with another song, I couldn't see why they wouldn't do well. Yeah. So before we go, have we got any last points on Switzerland at Eurovision?
Look, they were one of the founding countries of the contest. So, you know, I'm glad that they're still here. And despite the fact that, you know, they couldn't have participated in some of the countries because of I hate that averaging rule I think it was in the 90s. That's why they didn't appear. But you know what? They're doing very well. And all I'm gonna say is, you know, you're doing good right now. I think you're gonna do a Sweden. You're gonna have your resurgence any year now. So just keep pushing. And you know, please pick somewhere where there's a lot of variety of accommodations or where we're gonna go to, just because, you know, we're not made of money.
Pretty much just keep doing what you're doing. I love what you're sending and I want to hear more of it.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm really excited to see what they bring in these next couple of years. Maybe they can get their deserved win. I do think that they are due for one. They should. I want to see them win.
Yeah, I think they're totally due for a win. I think it'll happen soon if they keep doing what they're doing, keep sending artists that send music authentic to them, and artists that songs that the artists are happy to be singing and can bring everything to that stage. I think if they keep doing that, then they'll get a win soon. And it's always nice to see like countries that have been there since the beginning doing well in the contest. Like we're seeing it with Italy and France as well. Like Italy have won recently, France are knocking on the door just like Switzerland. I think it's been a real resurgence of like countries that have been there since the very beginning trying to get results again, which wasn't necessarily the case in the noughties, early 10s. So it's nice to see that again. And that about takes us to the end of that Eurovision podcast. I would like to thank Colin, Tim, and Rosie for joining me today. Don't forget you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at That Eurovision site. And you can listen to our podcasts at That Eurovision Podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So is everybody ready to say bye?
Bye.
Bye.